Okay. T'es à côté de qui? C'est toi avec nous, oui. Can make a bracha.
Their first cousin. They're both my first.
What are you saying, the Chaim? What I said? Yeah.
I heard you married off my niece.
Chaim.
Friends.
Chaim.
Oh, yeah.
Chaim. Chaim.
We'll see that.
Everybody can answer. No, just how long? Kind of off.
Feels like a friendly place. Je sens entre des amis.
There's almost no French.
No?
Almost.
Okay.
There's some ladies. So
Okay.
Just speak like this loud. Somebody want to get a mic. I don't know. Just bring one.
3 years ago, this time of the year, this is the first time I'm here in New York for 2 years because of COVID and restrictions. Ze willen zich geholpen alle. I missed the bar mitzvah ve'enekel. But they were to But 3 years ago, I made a wedding of my son, Zayn Gesund, in Detroit. The chasna was Yud Zayin Shevat. So we came first to New York and spent Shabbos with Ufruf, Oil. And then we went to the chasna. And Baruch Hashem, they now have a child. And then we traveled back. I made my ticket from Detroit back to London. I made it via Iceland, via Reykjavik. Why? Because there was new shluchim in Iceland. Family, Feldman, Avi, I forgot what her name is. Nice young couple. They're in Reykjavik. Now, it's a crazy situation because you got very short days in winter. Summer, you've got, you have dollar, you have to make Sunday morning because it's like, it doesn't get really dark. And so they had asked me a lot of questions and I'd spent a couple of weeks working through the various shilas which come up with Zmanim. But that I didn't need to be in Iceland to answer about Zmanim. But then they sent me a photograph, several photographs of outdoor mikvahs, an outdoor pool, an hot outdoor pool. It's ice, all around is ice, but in the middle of the ice, there's a bit of grass, and it looks almost like a mikvah. Steps going down, and it's naturally hot water, or not naturally hot. They asked, it's natural water, it's a hot water, is it kosher for a mikvah? So from the distance, I said, I think it's okay. Pretty sure. But from Deswegen, I was keen to check out. So I made my ticket via Iceland. Although the connection was only for an hour and a half, I thought if I have a delay, I might be able a chance to see the outdoor mikvahs. It was just around the time of this time, so the shluchim there were here. They were in New York. She came for the kinnas shluchim, so they weren't home. Garnished. So in Detroit airport, it was, I don't know whether you remember Shevat, 3 years ago, it was gefährlich cold. It was like, especially for guys like me, I'm from England, never seen such a freezing weather. So, but then we came to the airport in Detroit, and to our mazel, there was also some kind of flood in the airport. So our plane was delayed by 2.5 hours, 3 hours. So we left Detroit, so then good spec. By the time our plane arrived in the Reykjavik, I stayed on the English connection. So we're now stuck in Reykjavik for 10 hours till the evening flight. So, let's say I should be there. And I wanted to be there. So I'm now in Reykjavik. So I found a corner of the airport to daven. Before 10 o'clock, you can't daven shach. It's too early. It's a bocher's paradise. It's dark. 10 o'clock. We didn't daven shach. And they gave us vouchers there. So what can you already buy? You can buy fruit and what do you call it? Like, smoothies, whatever. Say that we had a bit of food with us. It wasn't a problem. I went outside with my wife and two children, and we called a taxi. Asked a taxi. I pull out my laptop. I show him. I want to go to these outdoor pools. I'm warning you guys. It costs a lot of money. The price of living in Iceland is exorbitant. It was good. It cost me about $150 for about 1.5 hours. Actually, okay, fine. Upon him, the taxi driver says, "Yeah, jump in," and he takes us, and we start driving. And we're driving out of the airport, and it's like a desert, just snow, and blocks of lava, black blocks, like big blocks. And that also pipes, miles of pipes, because what they do is they take the volcanic heat and they divert it into town, so people don't have to pay for heating, because everything is heated naturally. It's a volcanic area, so he took us close to the volcano area. No people living there, but say that. And he stops the car, and we get out of the car, and there's an area where there's a cloud of steam, like a cloud of coming out of the ground. It's like unreal. And we get out of the car, and everywhere is still covered in snow, but there's this area, as if, it's steam coming out of the ground. It's like a cloud. And I touch the ground. He says, it says, don't get off the path. Of course I get off the path, and I check out with on the floor. The floor is hot. And it was like an unreal experience of being so close to this cloud coming out of the ground. This was as close as we got to the hot place. By the time we saw that, so we had to get back to the airport. Say that this is Shabbos. This is in Parshas Mishpatim. So we arrived in London a good 12 hours later than scheduled. So Thursday, Friday, I come to Shul still under in the clouds, so to speak, and I hear that Ulam is learning a Maimer, which is published in Dvar Malchus. And the Maimer is on the last Rashi in Parshas Mishpatim. It says, Vayovei Moshe b'seiche onon, Vayikra Hashem el Moshe, onon, or something on those lines. And there's an onon, there's a cloud, and Moshe as it goes through the cloud to go receive the Torah. This is post-Matan Torah. And it says there, Rashi says, Onon ze kemin oshon hoya. This cloud was a kind of smoke. The Osa Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe Shvil b'soicha. And the Ebershter made a path from Moshe through the smoke. That's the Rashi. Now this is it's a Maimer Sikha. It's from Tofshin Chof. That was the first year of the Rashi Sikhas. And the Rebbe talks about in Bichlal those years the Rebbe would pick on either the first Rashi or the last Rashi. It's before my time, but so the Rebbe is talking about this Rashi, Maimer, and talking about before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, it says Bahar Sinai Oshan Kuloi. That was we just read yesterday. There's a massive smoke. The whole Har Sinai is smoking, a big smoke. Afterwards, after Matan Torah, it says, "Oh, nonze kemino oshonoyo." It was a smoke, a cloud, and the Rebbe explains what's going on here. You know, a fire, if it's burning something which has got a strong mass, a strong resistance, so then it makes a big smoke. If it's something more refined, so then it makes a little smoke. Before Matan Torah, the world was coarse, was grob, and therefore, like you can burn a tire. It's a horrible smoke. It is dense. Burn paper. So before Matan Torah, the world was dense. So therefore, the fire over the Har Sinai, Oshan Kula, was a major fire, major smoke. After Matan Torah, the world becomes more refined. Therefore, the Rebbe's words here is, the challenge is a challenge. There is still a resistance, but it's not the same resistance as before. And there's going to be a smoke. Why did the Eibush have to make a path for Moshe through the smoke? The Rebbe says, listen, he's going to receive the Torah. Such a momentous occasion is receiving the Torah. Imagine you turn up to a wedding and you smell like you just walked out of a fish shop. You're working the whole day, you smell like, I don't know what, pasnish. You go to receive the Torah, you have to become like a mensch. So Moshe Rabbeinu should go and receive the Torah without, with smoke. The Eibush made a path, you can go through the path, and it shouldn't get dirty from the smoke. That's the Rebbe's Mahalach, and of course he's explaining Avodah that the message for all of us is the challenge is still there. It's not the same. It's not so formidable as before Matan Torah. The world is and if you are Mekusha to Moshe, you follow the path of Moshe, you can go through this challenge and you don't get dirty. And that's the message, which is now. That's the Sikha, as I heard, as I was half in the clouds. Then I realized it's very familiar this Sikha. Then I realized when I was a bocher about 19, I was sent by the Rebbe to Australia. The Rebbe would send every 2 years I was the 7th group of 6 bocherim sent to Australia, and we left to Australia on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Rosh Chodesh Adar, sorry. On Rosh Chodesh Adar, we had a Yechidus bocherim on a Sunday, and it was a Sunday of Parshas Through. Tofshin Mem was the 30th year of the Rebbe's Nesias. So then the big excitement was Vayihi B'Shleishim Shana. That was the song at the time. Vayihi B'Shleishim Shana, Vayihi B'Shleishim Shana, Vayihi B'Shleishim Shana, Keep Laim, the Tushia. That was the mantra at the time. Fine. The Rebbe gave each one of us 30 shkolim because our route was to go through Eretz Yisrael, which is an amazing story on its own. The shluchim went to Australia, would always go through Eretz Yisrael. Zusha took care of us for a whole week. What an amazing experience. And he gave us 30 Australian dollars. He gave us 3 American dollars. He gave us also a volume, Tesvov, of the Likutei Sichos, which had just come out, just published, for Shvat, I guess. And then he gave us the Likutei Sichos, the booklet. Likutei Sichos would come out every week. The younger people have to explain. The Likutei Sichos would come out. A pamphlet would come out every Wednesday, every Thursday. Sometimes it came out on Friday, and so that was Likutei Sichos of the week. So this is the Sunday of Parshas Through, no? And the Rebbe gave us, in addition to the Chelik Tesvov, he gave us the Likut, the pamphlet which came out for the preceding Shabbos, for just yesterday. That's Parshas Shishpatim. So this Sikha, which the Rebbe had said in Tafshin Chof, it was published as a Likutei Sichos Tafshin Mem. that this sikha which I'm talking about, of Moshe walking through the cloud and not getting dirty, that's the sikha which the Rebbe gave me in the hand 40 years ago. Tafshin, other Tafshin. So I just felt it was like, when I realized all of these things together, before I'd been in New York, I'd been by the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe for guidance, for inspiration. And so here I get this whole diversion and this whole experience. And the Rebbe is giving, and I told you a few years ago, check it out. Onan said that there is a smoke, there is a challenge, but if you do it right, you won't get dirty. So that's one personal experience.
Time to walk.
About 25 years ago, it was Chof approximately. And the organizers of the Kinus HaShluchos, apparently there was a shortage of Rabbonim in New York. So they called me if I could come and give a talk at the Kinus HaShluchos. So fine, we got to ask you too many questions, so long as they're paying my ticket. So I come, and Thursday, Friday, Sunday, but Shabbos, I'm ben Chayrin. Shabbos, I'm free to do what as I wish. And so Shabbos, I go to the oil for Shabbos. At the time, I was going through a particular challenge. And on Erev Shabbos, before I went in, I prepared my zettel, my letter to the Rebbe. And when I described this particular predicament, I'll tell you, I was involved I was working part-time in a particular department. And there was a conflict between my father-in-law and the staff. And I was one of the staff. So I'm stuck in between my father-in-law on one side and the staff on the other side. And I was finding it traumatic. And I wrote in my zettel, as ich feel as der reist dahin und der reist dahin. In Yiddish, I wrote that in Yiddish. This one is pulling you in this way. In Yiddish, it sounds better. Well, funny. Then this is Shabbos Parshas Mishpatim. Usually the Kinus HaShluchos is around Shabbos Parshas Mishpatim. And for that year, it was not an Iber year, it was a regular year. And so it was also Shabbos Shkolim. My Shver al-Vashalom, he would have a particular geschmack in going to the Oyel and learning a Maimer in front of the Bala Maimer. Stand in front of the Oyel and learn a Maimer with the Rebbe. So I was a bit infected with his enthusiasm. And so I went. So Friday night, I sat down. There was a Maimer which was published for that Shabbos, Maimer about Shabbos Shkolim. And halfway through the Maimer, my time clock kicked in. I felt very, very tired. I said, I can't learn any further. I gotta go to sleep, for the meal, whatever. And I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the mikveh, and then I take the Maimer to the Tzion, and I'm learning the Maimer at the Tzion, at the end of the Maimer. As I say, it's a Maimer about Parshas Shkolim, Machzis HaShekel. You may be familiar. There is a word of the Mezritcher Magid, make for yourself 2 silver trumpets. So the word chatzoitzrus, which means a trumpet, can also be read as chatzoitzurus, 2 halves of an image. And this connects the idea. This is the idea of Machzis HaShekel. We are a half, and the Eibush is a half. This is a familiar idea that you're a half. You can't manage without the Eibush. By the way, it also means the Eibush can't manage without you. Yeah, that's the other side of the coin. Yeah, fine. But then he says the Indian of Stechatzoitzres, and those the Indian was a state. Oh, Tartoni. It says by until him. Oh, Tartoni that the Mauritian was created 2 bodies connected back to back. What does it mean that you got 2 drivers with different steering wheels at either end of the truck? What does it mean as there? The very same words which I had written in my zettel. And on Friday, just before Shabbos, now I'm reading in the Maimer as I'm standing in front of the tzir. They have a problem that is you got two drivers who are pulling you in different directions. There, and there. And then he continues, and what is the solution? And what the solution after other Mauritian was two bodies being pulled in different directions. Then the Eibishter puts him to sleep, and then there is the sawing apart of the two bodies to make them able to meet face to face. And that's called in Kabbalah, that's called the Inyan HaNasira. Nasira means the sawing apart. And what is the Inyan HaNasira in Aveda? What is the Nasira? What's the remedy? You have a problem and this one's pulling in this direction, that one's pulling the other direction. So the remedy is part of an learning. Okay, so I kind of got it right there on the plate. Ask the question, and whatever says, your job, part of an learning. Focus on your thing, and don't get distracted. So that's. I just want to tell you this. I find a very dramatic story how the Rebbe clearly, found a way to add this. Tell another story. One time, you guys are going to get a bit of a psychological profile of me by the end of the evening. See all my problems.
How did the first story? That was kosher over there?
Oh, don't worry about it. So one time I went to my wife went to Stroll, and I wasn't very happy with my situation in London, and someone had offered me some kind of stickle post of Jakoilo. I was very excited. I loved Eretz Yisrael. I still love Eretz Yisrael. But I have my shlichus. But okay, and that's it. We're packing up. We're going. What are this is Shavuos? Come back after Shavuos, and I'm one of those guys who work on Shabbos. My parnosa is I have to work on Shabbos after speaking Shul, etc. So at random I take out the Sikha. If you take a look, it's in Parshas in Chelik Yud Gimel, Parshas Nosoi, the first Sikha, it's the first Shabbos after Shavuos, and he talks there about the Merori, the sons of Levi, Shevat, beginning of Elish, Nosoi Rosh, Bnei Geshem Gam Hev, and the Rebbe says the following. And I chaz the Sikha, I try to use all my energy when I chaz the Sikha, and I say I'm reading over the Sikha, and sometimes you can look around and you see that it's just a desert around you. There's no one to talk to. Until you decide that you're going to pack up your bags and you're going to leave Al Maladucho, you're just going to go somewhere else. Zak B'dinei, of Levi, of Kahal, or whatever, the Emram, or whatever, Merari or Geshet. Your job is to stay in the Midbar and to transform it, to change it around. I said this secret. When I came home, my wife says, you realize we got the answer. You got your answer. Stay in Melad and change it. Change the midbar, make it to the place where things grow. No hamais. I'll tell you one more mice for a moment. Mice is this time of the year. The Rebbe used to, as I said, the Rebbe used to release the Likkutei Sichos on a Thursday. If it was late, it was on a Friday. But usually it was on Thursday, so I remember that everyone said that when the Tzemach Tzedek says ayin, he doesn't mean that you should trust that he knows what's written over there. When he says ayin, means that you should look it up. So I took that seriously to a degree, and I was already married, so I had my own shas and my own Shulchan Aruch, a few basics for him. So every Thursday night, I had Havrusa, this Israeli boy who I knew from Chabad, and we would sit a few hours every Thursday night going through the Sikha. At the time, and this is something that's very important for people to understand, that the Rebbe loved feedback about the Sikhs. He didn't want there should be, you have a problem, write about it. It doesn't mean you have to write a personal zettel. Shalom Aleichem. The Rebbe
You spoke of warning.
my uncle.
Hey, your uncle?
Ah. My Shviga's youngest brother. Well, that's big. The mice has a. So the Rebbe had published a sikha for Dayan and Author, and for some reason, the sikha the Rebbe took the position that Moshe Rabbeinu, I think that year was a leap year. Al Kaponim, the Rebbe took the position that Moshe Rabbeinu was born in a leap year, and Dayan and Author is Dayan and Author. Okay, you say yeah. Say it. Now, now, this was a note in the beginning of the Sikha, and at the time, I want to say, it was if you would write something in Ha'oras V'Urim, they would manage to sometimes Thursday night they would put it in, and by Shabbos it was ready in the Ha'oras. You know, they got it ready before Shabbos. So I wrote a note Ha'orah about this, which I did. I said I don't understand the Rebbe's Sikha. And it was published already before Shabbos. And Shabbos, by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe talks about it. So I'll tell you what my problem is. There's a Gemara in Seita, which talks about Moshe Rabbeinu being put in the water. And it says, there's two opinions. One says it was the day of Matan Torah, and one says it was the day of Kriyas Yamsuf. The Gemara, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was born Dayan and Author, and it took 3 months, till he was put in the water. If you say it was the day of Matan Torah, so from Dayan and Author till above Sivan, it's not bad. Yeah, it works out. But if you say it was the day of Matan Torah, the day of Kriyas Yamsuf, Chof Nisan, how do you get to 3 months? And it was an Iber year. It was a leap year. So if you say it was the day of Matan Torah, it could be a regular year. If you say it was the day of Kriyas Yamsuf, then it has to be it was a leap year. But the Rebbe took the liberty of saying, no, everyone agrees it was a leap year. They're just arguing whether it's a whole month or even a half month. So I don't understand. Why do you have to? What's the hechrich to say that it was a leap year according to everyone? On the contrary, the one who says it was the day of Matan Torah, he doesn't have to say it was a leap year. Yeah. So far, yeah, you agree with me, yeah? So far. So the Rebbe by the Farbrengen, and this was very unusual. The Rebbe said the following: which means a crooked approach to learning. And if you insist on learning that way, you know, have a nice day. But then the Rebbe says, "Si den der Fahrt, die bald sich von der Machlekes bemitzias, wegen ein Ingela, sie mir hat reingelegt in Wasser dem Tag zu jenem Tag. Davon der Fahrt voneinander sprechende Machlekes, und das soll herumnehmen ganz klar ist roh, sie sagen, gehalten, Iberjot, schon a Pshuton. You have here a breakdown of information. You have machlokes in theory, but here we're not talking about theory. We're talking about a fact. Moshe Rabbeinu, so you have a breakdown of information whether we put down the water this day, that day. So you say, no, I have already a breakdown of information, so let's make it bigger. Let's say there's a breakdown of information, which is not only about one little boy when he was put in the water. Let's say there's a breakdown of information of a whole population of several million people, whether they had this type of calendar or that type of calendar. So it's obvious if you look at it from that perspective, it's a ridiculous proposition to say because we have a small machlokes, therefore we have to make a big machlokes. So this was the Rebbe's response. I tell the story. One of the What do you learn from this story? Well, first of all, you have here an insight into the way the Rebbe looks at things in a much more seeing the full picture or the more real picture, rather than just you looking at just one little corner. But I want to say something else. I think a very important point. It's important for Chassidim to appreciate the Rebbe's Lamdas. Why? Why is it important for a Chassid to appreciate the Rebbe's Poshet Lamdas? Why is it so important? I don't know whether that was true in previous generations. How many Chassidim, the Frierdiker Rebbe, did people know of his Lamdas? It wasn't a Chassid for us to understand the sacrifice, to understand the sacrifice which the Rebbe gave of his time and energy. A person who has a Gishmak, in Lomdus, in Mushkah, so it's a passion, and he sacrificed so much for what? Yiddishkeit, Chassidus, Makarav Zayin, and that's just an angle which I don't think you hear very much about. When you learn a mimer, you see that genius of a mimer. It's the presentation of how he takes a concept, and one of the, if you could say, a motive style of the Rebbe's Mamorim, he often will take this concept and he explains how it is these three aspects in Torah, these aspects in Avodah, and these three aspects in Spheres, and there's a certain type of, but it's a brilliant type of style. That's in the Mamorim, whether it's in the Sichos. But in addition to Poshet enjoying the Geshmak, Poshet to have a Geshmak in the Rebbe's limud, just another little aspect about it to appreciate and I remember the first time I went in Yechidus on my own. So there was in front of me, I'm not the kindest nature type of person. Sometimes judgmental. At any rate, the fellow who was in front of me, in my mind, as a 16, 17-year-old boy, was not the most intelligent person in the community. And he was standing, I just saw how the Rebbe was so patient, so giving, so listening to him. He had recently come from Russia. That I wouldn't recognize the guy. I'm talking about 40 years ago, or whatever, 25 years ago. But it just struck me how the Rebbe had such tremendous patience. And so sometimes when we are challenged with people call out the problems, and it is sometimes a bit of a challenge. So we have to have patience, and we can dial at least Rabbi. I just finished up on a funny note. I told Rabbi Shushan that Farbrengen is going to be funny also. So I got a call from a woman, and she said, "Rabbi, can you help me? My rabbi that refuses to arrange Kaddish for my loss." So I said, "Was your husband Jewish?" She says, "No, I'm not my husband. It was my cat." So I tried to explain to her, my cat, the shop. So I explained to her patiently that Kaddish is for elevating the neshama. The cat has reached the highest heaven it will ever reach. You don't need to say Kaddish for the cat. It's okay. Say that. Whatever, there was Miskabel 2 years later, approximately. It's a half an hour before Shabbos. And I recognize the voice. Oh, it's next cat. Next cat. So I listened to her and I asked her, "Tell me, are you married? Do you have a family?" She said, "No, I live alone." So I understand a woman living alone, a middle-aged woman living alone. So the cat was a source of comfort, of company. I asked her, do you light a candle for Shabbos? No. So I said, "You know what? I have an idea for you. You'll light a candle every Friday. You light a candle. When you look at the candle, you'll see the warmth and the light, and it will remind you of the warmth and the geschmack which you had from your cat. And in this way, you'll be able to connect and perpetuate your Die worden de hele stuk geholpen en de kabel en de Shem, zo fijn.
Ja, dat is
The first Shabbos, the first Yortzeit of the Rebbetzin, says at that time, once the Rebbe introduced the Limud Rambam, by every public occasion, the Rebbe would talk about the Rambam of that day. So at that time, what was the Shabbos? What was the Limud Rambam at that time of the Yortzeit? So it's about a person making a fire on Shabbos. I don't know whether you learned this recently, the Tzibur, but the Rebbe talks about the Rambam says you're only chayiv if you make a fire on Shabbos only if it creates ash, if you have need for the ash. It's only mavir mitzorach le'efer, only if you need the ash. And the Rebbe's take on this is that there's only that inspiration is fire. Inspiration is fire, but inspiration is only valuable if it has a concrete result. If the inspiration is going to be translated into something concrete, then that is valuable. Then that is a fire, that's a melacha, that's part of building the world to make it a dwelling for the Eibishter. But you make a fire, just a passion without a result is not a constructive. It's not constructive per se. It's a nice experience, but it's not valuable per se. Now, I heard a word from Rebbe Shlomo on this week's Parshas Mishpatim. We have here about a Jewish servant. And a Jewish servant, he zikne eved ivri, and it says like this: Im begapo yovoi begapo yeitzei, im baal ishohu v'yotzo ishto imoy. If he comes into the contract alone, then he will leave the contract alone. He will leave. In other words, if he comes in single, then he will leave single. Im baal ishohu, if he came into the contract with a wife, so then the Yotze Ishte, when he is set free, his wife is also set free. That's the literal translation. Shlomo Chaim would say the following: person can come to the Rebbe, and he can come empty-handed, or he can come with his own passion. In Begapa Yover, if he comes to the Rebbe empty-handed, Begapa Yetz is very possible he'll come and go, and he'll have his moments of inspiration, but they will not. He'll go away empty-handed. In Baal Isha, he has his own fire. If he comes with fire, then the Yotze Ishta Imay. Then the Rebbe's fire will connect to his fire, and then he will come out inspired in a concrete way. That's the word of Shlomo Chaim. One of the I was here Tafshin Lamed Ches, and when the Rebbe had the heart issue, I was in the Shul, and all of a sudden it became chaos. People saying the Rebbe needs air, and they started smashing windows and rushing out. Foolishly or wisely, I remained in the room. I saw the Rebbe going to the last hakofa, to the 3 rounds, and then that night, lots of us know the story, been documented. What happened then? On Simchas Torah Tafshin Lamed Ches, the Rebbe gave instructions from his room that there should be a Farbrengen. and he used the muscle of the syringe. And the syringe works through the vacuum. And when you pull on the syringe, then the vacuum obligates that the emptiness will be filled. And the Rebbe was kind of using this as a muscle of this absence that itself should stimulate that there'll be some filling of the vacuum of the gap. So this was the first time I had seen a Farbrengen who seated. It was the same tzir, like the same layout as the Rebbe's Farbrengen. The Rebbe wasn't present, and various Chassidim spoke. One of the people who spoke then was Rabbi Raskin. He was should we say, a portly gentleman in his 80s, and he was always chazan on Simchas Torah for Musaf, and because he had davened Simchas Torah where the Rebbe is just outside the Rebbe's room, because of the Rebbe's condition, so he had a problem that they hadn't flipped him over, and so this was his problem, and if I bring it Simchas Torah afternoon, evening, whatever, and he insisted, say he was 80 plus, quite generously proportioned, and he insisted that they give him a somersault, turn him over. But that's one experience. But one of the people who spoke at the time was Rebbetzin Abelsky. Rebbetzin Abelsky is originally from Kishinev, it's Moldavia, I think, and then my grandma was born there. My grandmother was born in Moldavia, in Kishinev, okay. And then, Moldavia, whatever. Yeah, these things are a bit flexible. So Zalma Belsky, he had probably at some stage, perhaps after the war or later, he had emigrated to Eretz Yisrael. And he had very active, I think, in Kiryat Gat, tall, very pleasant, how do you say, very engaging, loving type of person. Later he moved back to Kishinev, and he was on Shlichus there till his last days. And now it's continued, Baruch Hashem. So Zalman Abelsky stood up, and he told the following. It wasn't eating for Chabad, it was alive at the time, by the name of Chatzkel. And the way it was in earlier years, visitors who came to the Rebbe for Tishri, they were able to go into Yechidus before Rosh Hashanah. And then that was like Shalom Aleichem Yechidus. At the end of Tishri, after Tishri, then they would go in again, and that was like, a farewell Yechidus, whatever you want to call it. And Chatzkel had arrived before Rosh Hashanah, and he had gone to Yechidus. And he wasn't registered. He didn't feel that he had arrived. To the point, by the Rebbe's Farbrengen, you can see this in the videos, but the Rebbe, people would raise their cup like this, and the Rebbe would look around, and he would nod, kind of acknowledge. He would acknowledge. And he felt that he's not getting eye contact, he feels he hasn't arrived. And then this was a whole tishri, showing Kippur and Sukkot. And then it was on Sukkot, on Simchas Torah, at some moment, the Rebbe really got the crowd, very ecstatic. And that moment he also joined in. He was jumping up and down and singing and clapping. And that moment he kind of felt he had lost, he had lost contact with his yeshus, and he felt I've arrived. And then after that he raised his cup. I don't know. So that was Alman Abelsky's story. So talking about connecting, how do you connect through little, simcha, and that's so talking about I personally saw the Rebbetzin only once. That was actually the night of And I just Shmini Atzeres, when the Rebbe, when she came to the Rebbe's room, that was the only time I ever met her. She did my wife's aunt, by the name of Basi Azimo. She had a special relationship with the Rebbetzin, sorry. And for the first couple of years after our wedding, we didn't have children. And the Basi had asked the Rebbetzin for a bracha. She gave. And my first daughter was born not long after that. I believe she also gave the Rebbetzin a photograph of her great niece. So we did have that connection. I'll tell you one more story about the Rebbetzin. On Albany Avenue. No, so. I'll speak louder. So on Albany Avenue, there used to be a bakery. Yeah? Sur l'avenue Albany, il y avait une boulangerie. Huh? Okay. I used to get the Mushkah cake. But there used to be also, the Rebbetzin would stop up there. The Halberstam would drive the Rebbetzin and stop off the car outside the bakery. And they would go in, the Rebbetzin would stay in the car. My sister, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they lived just above the bakery. Just and so two things. One thing is that my sister knew that every day was a schedule. She could see when the Rebbetzin would come and almost different lines of the Rebbetzin. Personally, she was a very, very disciplined person. But so one time, one of my brothers-in-law was in my sister's house, and he took out a camera. And as he took a picture of the Rebbetzin from the car when he was upstairs, and she gave him a stern look. And then that was in the times before digital cameras. So you remember the Kodak films. So the whole Kodak film didn't didn't develop. But then the second story is that my sister-in-law was very talented with art. And in order to supplement her income, so she would offer art lessons. So there was a woman who took up this idea, and she was unfortunately she was married several years and never had any children. And so I guess the art would be therapeutic. At any rate, so she came to my sister-in-law in the apartment, and my sister-in-law's name is Esther. Esther says to her, you know, the Rebbetzins, you want to see the Rebbetzin? The Rebbetzins just outside now. And this was a local woman in Crown Heights. She had never met the Rebbetzin before, and she took this opportunity. And she ran to the window, and they made eye contact. It was just the right time when she was ready to, and she conceived, and she gave birth to a child who was born after Chof Shevat. Was named Mushkah. This young lady happens to be married to a nephew of mine, so I can confirm exactly who it was. But, someone once asked the Rebbe, the well-known expression of the Rebbe, she can give her own brachas. She has her own ability to give brachas. Yeah. So interesting. In the Chaya we look in the history, in the previous Rebbein, the Rebbetzins were not active. The Chaya of the Rebbetzin Rivke was very involved in the Bochrim and the Atmimim and making sure that they had. But that was after the Rebbe had passed away. The Rebbetzin Stern was involved with Achas Atmimim and the Shevat. That was after the Chaya of the Rebbe. They took even in previous generations, took a very low profile, and the Rebbetzin to the extreme. But all right, that's their avodah. Just the support, and all these stories how the Rebbetzin was the one who kind of motivated the Rebbe to take on the Messias. It wasn't so posh. And she took the position of that she can't bear to see that all the efforts which had been expended by her father, her grandfather, and her father should dissipate because of the lack of leadership. So she paid an enormous price, but that was the right thing to do. And in this Sikha of Shimem Test, the Rebbe talks about the Inyan Mesiras Nefesh. And that was something which was so important to her, the concept of Mesiras Nefesh. A story that when she was a child, so they had hired a teacher for the children, and the teacher was a bit loath to teach the children these scary stories of Mesiras Nefesh. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, no, contrary, that's really very important to Philip. And so the concept of Mesiras Nefesh was something very important to her, and that's part of our inspiration. So l'chaim, you should take inspiration from l'chaim.
How long did you come to the Rebbe?
Now, I haven't been 2 years.
2 years. This is the first time you come to the Rebbe after COVID.
I want to tell you a story. Time. As I said before, I work on Shabbos.
Me too.
At least I get paid.
It's good never she allowed to work on Shabbos.
So, it was a little time. So, one Shabbos, about 4 years ago, whatever, and I'm sitting Farbrengen, and I said, I don't remember why I said this, but I said that by Chassidim, we have a tradition that if you have a dream and you see the Rebbe, you take it serious. I don't know why I said it, but I said it. And I said it, I don't know, down to Chof. I don't remember why. But short around that time, I had been invited to a conference in Rome.
What?
To a conference, a rabbinical conference in Rome. And I'm part of this organization. I go every year to these conferences, and every year or every 2 years, whatever. So I said I'm coming. And, was haben wir Rabbonen? Nicht so viel Geld, ich gekauft. Und das vergibt mir sehr echt nicht. So I called him, still COVID. So I said I'm coming, yeah, sure. And then about a week or two after this Farbrengen, I have a dream, and I see the Rebbe, and it was a very uplifting moment. And there happened to be Beis Yisrael from Montreal passing by, and the Rebbetzin. And then I passed by, and somehow in my dream, it registered. And I understood that I was saying about the conference in Rome. That was my take on the dream. So I woke up, and I waited till I discussed it with my wife, etc. What I do here, I'd said, I try to keep my word, and especially people rely on me, and to cancel. I had the cover. That's a question. To be Mavatas and such a cover. But here's a dream, and I just said that you have to take a dream of the Rebbe seriously. I called up a Mashpia. Well, Mashpia was no longer alive at the time. So Bekitzer, I decided I'm not going. Shevat. This was other, and the organizers were upset why I let them down. Around Rosh Chodesh Iyar, it's published a sikh every week. There's a group here called Hanochas Balahak, Bad Hanochas Balahak, and they publish sikhs from previous years in a very Methodic way, and it's an amazing experience, which I can talk about more if necessary. And in addition to the sikhs, they also publish letters, which I've never really used. So around Iyar, as I say, so 3-4 years ago, is published a letter to the following. It's a letter to Rav Medalia. Rav Medalia was the Rav in Antwerp, in the Shemer Hadas community. I remember Rav Medalia, brilliant man, very well dressed, immaculately dressed. You remember him? He had this. He didn't wear a tie. He wore one of these fancy. Huh? Like a, no, it was like a bigger kind of cravat, whatever. I don't know, whatever you call it. He would come sometimes to London, and I had a Malamed at the time was Rebel Hikers or something, and Rebel knew Rabbi, and he got him to Faheras, and after the Faher he said, okay, let's play around. Bob Metzia, you put a pin through the page, and asked me what word is going through on the next page, and he was able to tell you, that's the pin trick to tell you which words is going to say on the next few pages through the pin. That was Rav Medalia, brilliant man. So Rav Medalia, he's the Rav, and now in the letter of the Rebbe to Rav Medalia, he says, following on from the telegram which I sent you, following on from the telegram about the conference to be held in Rome, my advice is that you should not go to the conference, and there shouldn't be a conference, because in Rome there's the Vatican, and it could be that people will think, they have to go on Yetzirah to visit the Vatican, and even if that doesn't happen, it could be that the Vatican will hear there's a rabbinical and a lay Jewish conference, and they will invite you, and then it will be very awkward for the participants to turn down an invitation of the Vatican, and therefore, says the Rebbe, therefore my opinion is that there shouldn't be a conference, not in Rome and not in the whole country. That's the Rebbe's. So this is so. And I'm telling you, 2 months earlier, I planned to go. Then I have this dream. And then I didn't. I felt guilty. And then you see this letter. The Rebbe the conference happened, and I missed out. But it doesn't matter. I felt, how you say, corroborated. The Rebbe found his way of telling me what to do. I want to share with you another thing, personal experience. I'm using all my personal stories, and then you won't be able to invite me again because I don't have more personal stories. Okay, I don't make him up. So here's this following. I'm 12 years old, and we are learning Chaya Kodesh, which was a Chiddush in London at the time. And my Shver, he was our Mushkah. So he got it into his, into his mind to encourage the boys this is Tafshin Lamed Gimel, to encourage the boys to ask the Rebbe for permission to start putting on Rabbeinu Tam's. What? To start putting on Rabbeinu Tam's film. Why was he motivated to do this? Because you can read in the Sichos from the week of Yud Shevat, post Yud Shevat, in the back of Likutei Sichos Beis, there are the stories, about 20 anecdotes, which were discussed during the Shiva. I presume it was that Rebbe was taking off his film, 4 pairs of film. At any rate, at that setting, the Rebbe says he doesn't understand why in Chabad boys don't put on Rabbeinu Tam's from Bar Mitzvah, and possibly he even says if I would have the opportunity, I would introduce such a thing. That they should start putting Rabbeinu Tam's from Bar Mitzvah. This is Tafshin Yud. 23 years later, 23 years later, it still hasn't happened. So now Nachman Sudak has a Bar Mitzvah class. So now's the time. It's the first time he had a Bar Mitzvah class for years. I don't know why, but whatever. That's the reality. So he starts pushing us one by one to ask the Rebbe for permission to put the Rebbe at house. So my elder Chaverim, 6 months older, 5 months older, that was how I say it. We'd come to the Rebbe before Bar Mitzvah, and go to Yechidas for Bracha. And one by one, the Rebbe said yes. So then I came, the first time I saw the Rebbe was Yutas Kislet Tafshin Lamed Daled. This was upstairs. The Rebbe was saying Kaddish. Kislev used to say Kaddish. You know, the Rebbe would come into the small zal upstairs. Usually he would come just near the front door, yeah? But on more formal occasions, he would go onto the Mizrach door, where near the door to the second room. This was Shabbos, I think he would go down there, etc. So this is where the Rebbe was, this Yutas Kislev by night. That's the first time I saw the Rebbe, Almadein. And then, good. So Chanukah, one night of Chanukah, I went with my father, and I went to Yechidus, and easy bait, so to speak. So I was pestering my father about town, everyone, kids, everyone's doing it, peer pressure. So my father, I don't know whether he settled, apparently asked the Rebbe, the Bacha wegen Towns. So the Rebbe said, Bezeh Haloshon, Ebe vetach sich unternehmen, nicht zu Masiach das. Wegen Machshavas Asuris retten doch nicht, und Machshavas Reshus echt nicht. Und es ist doch nur 10 Minuten. Und der Eize zu dem ist zu reingucken in Sider, sei zu Shema Bohem Shemoya, sei zu Vaidabe Bohem Kiriach. The Rebbe says the following: if he will commit himself, that he will not have foreign thoughts, forbidden thoughts is out of the question. Even optional, mundane thought is also not. And it's only 10 minutes. And the solution to this is to focus on the Siddur. And he mentioned the parashas of the Shema and the parashas of. After this, the Rebbe asked my father, does he have already his own film? My father said no. So he said, wait till he has his own film. So this is Tafshin Lamed Dalet. Yeah, my head rush. So, no, it was a whole thing. Was a surprise. I remember the next morning I came to all the Torah, and I told the kids, I told me, said, I gave a bracha over a time. They said, "You're crazy." It was like, like today, a guy would start walking in the Shemush Rabbah and arrive it. Yeah, it was unheard of. So this was Tafshin Lamed. Yeah, Al-Bukhari for 18 years old, but a kid, a mitzvah boy was. So this started a trend. So Bukhari started asking. I heard also Berkechain for some reason at a similar time started encouraging Bukhari. So I don't know whether Berkechain and Mashper, whether one kind of wound up the other, but I don't know. I don't know exactly how those mechanics work. But Lepel, Bukhari started asking the Rebbe one after the other, and then 2 years later, I stopped putting Tafshin Lamed Vov. The Rebbe, you correlate with film, so it's got to do with this Purim. So the Rebbe says, it's something which is already applicable, it's relevant to everyone, any bocher, bar mitzvah, so long as he has his own film, he should start wearing that. Okay, so this became standard now. Standard.
So the other kid in the class, he didn't say about Machshavas.
With the other guys?
Yeah.
No. I was the only guy who got. So now, listen, we ain't finished yet. So then, Tafshin Lamed Vov, I was already in Brinwa. And I was 3 years by Rebbetzin. No, which is worse. I was in Brinwa. Rebbetzin wasn't much better. I'll call upon him, Tafshin Lamed Zayin. I want to tell you something. I think a side point, very, very valuable point. Right. And 2 weeks after we came back, I was ready. Tafshin Lamed Vov. I was ready in Brinwa. 2 weeks after we came back from the Rebbe, I was here for Tafshin Lamed Vov for Tishrei. 2 weeks later, we were told that the Rebbe is reimbursing 50% of our tickets. And this was hundreds of people in France and at Stroll. The Rebbe reimbursed 50% of their tickets. And I just see that as an amazing concept. The Rebbe took communal funds, so gave the Rebbe funds, and he invested in young kids, in youth. They should come and spend the Tishrei. Well, let's come back. So, of course, what happened, I got 50%, I put it aside for next year. So, Tafshin Lamed Zayin, already have a ticket. The other half, the Mishnah beim Taten, obviously. But before you go to the Rebbe, you have to get permission for Rebbetzin. And if Nissen says you want to go to the Rebbe, you have to get ready. So you have to Perik Mem Aleph of Tanya Balpe, and Perik Mem Beis Balpe, and Perik Chof Balpe. I practically got on my knees. I pleaded with Rabbi Raskin, I don't have a good memory. I don't remember things well. And if it's a Masasi Chen Be'enov, that he let me off with much less than his original. But it was serious stuff, because when you went into the Rebbe as a bocher, you had to give in a zettel from your mashpia. You had to give a closed envelope, a sealed envelope. So I couldn't, I couldn't manage without Rabbi Raskin's consent. So it could have been a blank piece of paper. I don't know, but the fail, I needed to get that piece of paper from Rabbi Raskin. And after the end of Tishri, I was able to go into Yechidus. And again, for the younger generation, whenever would sit by Yechidus, he would sit a little bit forward, hat slightly down, and you couldn't, it was like slightly stooped forward. That was the posture. And that was the Rebbe's posture, that he would be slightly forward, hat was a little bit pulled down. That was what I remember. And I went over to the Rebbe, handed over my Rebbetzin paper in the closed envelope, and my paper. And the Rebbe kind of deftly opens Rebbetzin settle, reads it, and then he reads my paper. The Rebbe would often use also a pencil. On the side of the paper, he would, as he's reading, he would make marks, dot, whatever. And then he started. So on my paper, as progress in sloppy learning, then being a British culture person, I felt I had to apologize that I'm not keeping the agreement. I haven't made an agreement that I should not have foreign thoughts. And I wasn't keeping, I was also perhaps in my other parts, hoping I was saying, you're a nice kid, everyone has a thing, it's okay. But the Bible that I read my settle is a program. Then he says, and those most of the expectation of the time. And so there are right from Mushkah, so the haven column, those which are reference or question about when it comes to. So if a foreign thought does penetrate your mind, so you should raise your voice somewhat, and that will drive away your emotions. So it's a personal interest, but I feel it's a very powerful message. Going back to what I told you earlier about the your job is more of an enlightenment. So I see it as a very similar message that instead of being distracted, you have to see the focus. You have the Shulchan Aruch, you have your Seder HaChaim, etc. You follow the directions which you have been given. And that will help you not to be distracted. Sometimes the distractions overcome you. So then the Rebbe says, okay, so then the next plan B is that if you are being still distracted, so then intensify. Haben dem kol abisala, and that will help drive away machshav zaros. So I think that's a very valuable message for all of us, that we have our work cut out. We know what our siddur is, and each one's different. Each one has their own life. They have what the avodah is expected of us, and we know that there are distractions. And by focusing on the avodah, which is each one on each one to their own, that will help, and not to be distracted, not to be carried away in Narishkeit. And if from this way, so all right, so then starten. No. 40 years I was training myself.
I mentioned I spoke the other day about the story behind the girl that ever gave us birthday. When I could receive it.
I didn't know that they were pretty much before this was
Shaytas to Mashiach. So because we're getting closer to Mashiach that they started pushing this idea. Maybe you can explain why, but my take on this is interesting also. I always thought by the world, they start putting out their time when they get married. Only the ones who are children of Rebbe's, ain't class, put on. So they don't wanted all his Hasidim should be viewed like his children. So he started, encouraging us to tolerate eventually, eventually, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know.
But before that, only ones who got married.
Before then, no. Bachar would ask 18.
I'm saying before that. I'm saying you got life who got married.
As far as I know, Chabad, the Bachar, it was the standard thing. And 18 Bachar.
A minute, 18.
They would ask. It wasn't not without asking.
Not everyone got an answer. A positive.
Sometimes they ever said, Chabad Shaliach that item is from the Rashi.
So you're saying what Muhammad did before marriage? 18.
Yeah. Could be. Do it there.
And also by the Shabbat time and before also? What was that?
Before my remember.
Reading letters time also?
Back again. Begin wordt voor
De master. Is je de laatste also?
maar bij Zurkin didn't my for? Zurkin.
It's a foreign word. We don't done. It's a foreign word.
Together. I want to tell you, talking about mysterious language. So this is something, Baruch Hashem today, talking about the Hamedrash, there's a tremendous spoilers of the mysterious nefesh, the shlichus, etc. The Elam are registered. The Hamedrash Elam, it's become very recognized. So, I want to tell you a couple of incidents. In my first of all, I want to tell you the following. In Chof Nun Aleph, I was offered by Ezra's Achim to take up a shlichus in somewhere in the former Soviet Union, a town called Tallinn. I actually got a bracha from the Rebbe. It was a bracha, a haskama bracha. Somehow it didn't materialize. And but because of that, I always feel guilty. I had kind of not taken up the shlichus which the Rebbe had given me, and because of that, I feel very much motivated. Whenever a shliach, if I can help a shliach in the way which I can, so I really see that as a top priority. So about 10 years later, after this is Tafshin Aleph, I went to Tallinn with my wife, with one of my children, but about 10 years later, there's a new shliach there. His name is Rabbi Kot, Shmuel Kot. And he managed to somehow miraculously build a building, like a four-floor building, a glass building, like a dome. It's a stunning piece of architecture. Some Gvir Greenblatt or something who had a mother who used to live in Tallinn decided, one of these oligarchs. And he built this fantastic building, and included a mikveh. A mikveh. So one of the things which I do is I sometimes travel to check out the mikveh. So he asked if I could travel there and check out the mikveh in Tallinn. So fine, it worked out. I would go there. It was the Shabbos of Chof Dalet Teves. So I went there on Friday, whatever. And then on Shabbat, Friday night, there was a minyan in Shul, I think. Shabbos morning, there was a minyan in Shul. Some local people. On the way home, after Shul, I recognized we passed by a restaurant. It's in the central downtown. So I noticed there's a restaurant. The restaurants have sometimes tables. So there's a guy sitting, I remember him standing there. And I recognize he was the fellow who actually he was one of the guys who was in Shul. now he's standing outside, he's sitting outside the restaurant with the Maktek Teres. Shishi, Shlishi, whatever. Okay, but this is the oil which he had. And came home. And then what's the Shabbos? Tati says, Kindelach, Chafdal Teru, you're going to have a Farbrengen. We have a guest speaker. I'm asking if London's going to be a guest speaker. Who's going to be Mother Farbrengen? Moshe, who's 5.5, and Mendy, who's 4.5, and the Tati. And me, there's the big Farbrengen. And the kids said, shook him. And then Tati turns to Moshe, says, Moshe, I'll take this. Say the first page of Tanya. 5.5-year-old boy. Moshe starts going through the page. First page of Tanya. And the Moshe makes a mistake, and Mendy corrects him. Yeah. And then when they finished, when Moshe finished the first page, then Mendy takes over the second page. So these boys are now probably about 15 to 18 years old. But they were, I was totally amazed. And so they're living in two worlds. They're living in a world where, the guy who has Shlishi is Makir Teres and Shabbos, and then you come home and then they're living in a house in Tanya and left in a. I want to tell you on the other side, the other extreme. I have a brother and sister-in-law who live in England, about 2 hours away from London. There's no school there. So they would have their children come and stay with my mother-in-law, who was a busy person. And would sometimes come home later in the evening, and the kid calls up from Bobby's home, calls up to her mother at 5 p.m. Mommy, I'm all alone. I'm at home alone at Bobby's house, and I'm hungry. What should I eat? And it's such a difficult.
Eats up your heart.
Yeah. A 7-year-old child calls up, Mommy, I'm hungry. And the mother's 200 miles away, or 100 miles away, whatever, 2 hours drive. But this is what's going on. This Mesiras Nefesh which is going on. I want to show you with one more thing. There's a shliach, and Benjamin Wolf. There's a shliach in Hanover, in Germany. He would call me up very often, and so he called up. He asked about children in school, about singing, girls singing performance, something on those lines. And I told him, I remember there's a sikh of the Rebbe spoke about girls, about listening to it says in Pirkei Avos, about with the Zora Gilarayas Shvichas Domim, about Shmitas Haaretz. The Rebbe asked the question, how do these three things fit into Milsa de Chasidus? With the Zora Gilarayas Shvichas Domim, these are such power, such fundamental things. How do they fit into Milsa de Chasidus? And the Rebbe gave an illustration for each one, how it could be questionable whether it's a problem. But Milsa de Chasidus, you're going to refrain from it. So I don't remember the rest of the thing, but what I did remember was the Rebbe said, Plastinke is the Russian word for the record. So Zuhören sagt Sakel Isha Plastinke. Das ist wir kennen Kiwi Lomdes, what it is, discussion halacha. Of a Milsa de Chasidus, you should refrain from it. Milsa de Chasidus, you keep away from it. So I told this, I didn't remember exactly where it was. I told this to Benjamin Oliver Shalom. A couple of days later, he calls me back. He found the sikha and he kind of made a hachlotah to be much more careful about this area. just insights in the challenges. My wife is here also. Now, she said that Rabbi Raskin told a story on Shabbos. He spoke for the shluchos about it. So he told a story about the shliach. I don't remember where, but he managed to get a plot of land in a prime location. The Hainu, it's right near a mall, down in central position, and there's a plot of land. Now, apparently, for residential purposes, it's not very popular to live next to a mall. Mall should be a little bit further. And so the land, this plot of land next to the mall, was up for sale, and he managed to get it for a very, very cheap price. Okay, so now you've got a piece of land, but now you have to build something. It cost him $4 million to build. Where did you get the? He started trying to fundraise. So then someone offered him $2 million for the building, one condition, that it's going to have a sign with his and his wife's name. Turns out, however, that she is a convert to conservative convert. So basically, was its own. And it's the Rebbe's going to be a building of the Rebbe, and to have a name of a woman who is not Jewish. I have it, and that whole sign would be an offense to the Rebbe. So he didn't answer the phone call, so to speak. Eventually, the guy came to him, and he says, "I know why you don't want to take the money because of my wife, yeah." And he started making a whole stink against the shliach, how he's discriminating, etc. He lived with it, and then later, out of the blue, someone came and offered him a very substantial donation, similar amount, and he was able to go ahead to build it. And he felt it. The point being that he had Rebbetzin Shul. Could be, I don't know. I was recently, I was in Vienna. I was invited to come to Vienna for this Kislev. Verwacht with the students, verwacht with the Danash. But my ticket, it worked out better. I should go. There's a shliach building a mikveh in Budapest. He had spoken to me on the phone. I said, you know what? I'll make my ticket. I'll go to Budapest in the morning, check out the mikveh. Then the afternoon, I'll take a train from there to Vienna, and then spend the days there. Which I did. I was this shliach. He's got. Imagine you have in London we have the Thames, central downtown. First, he's got a Beis Chabad, 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, 50, 60 meters away from the Parliament, overlooking the Danube. I saw this. I come to this place. I thought, it's a fancy hotel, and he's got Alechela in the fancy hotel. No, he's got this building. The 2 ground floors upstairs is embassies. It's a very central position, and he's got this stunning. It's like a five. I walked in today. I thought I'd gone into a 5-star hotel lobby. That's what this space Chabad looked like. And he tells me how he one miracle after the other, how he was able to get this hatzlacha. Punkti went to a minion downtown, and he never goes there. Punkti went there, and he sees this fellow, a familiar face, who had come and had yahrzeit for his parents, and this fellow, had yahrzeit. He says he's got this building project. He just built this building, bought this building, has to be renovated. And the fellow agreed to pay whatever it was, a few $1 million, whatever it was, for the renovation of the place. So there's a picture of his parents or of this donor. Then he tells me he lives in the Shliach. He has an apartment, mamish next door. And he said he'd been living in the area. It's a very expensive area, and they had grown out of where they were living. They needed to find a new place, and it's very expensive. His wife said, "It came his young lad. Says, Mazali gave her go. He goes to the apartment building next door to Beis Chabad. I don't want to just share with you my spoilers. Imagine you're in central Manhattan, and you look up, and there's this imposing building that has a Jewish center of Manhattan. It's this big Kiddush Levada light writing, and it's like a mamish in central town. Jewish center of Lipovich, whatever Lipovsky. That's whatever the area is. But it's got this big neon sign. This is the Jewish center, and any tourist who passes by, it's a very busy area. And so he went next door, and he presses all the bells, and eventually he goes in. One person that's there, and he says he finds a fellow who lives upstairs, and he says, "I'm the rabbi from the Jewish that center next door. I just want to come in and say hello to our neighbors." Yeah. So then he said, "You notice this fellow has got two apartment doors open, one the front and one the back of the building." So it turns out that this fellow, I hope this was somebody else, I know, till now he's been living at the back of the building. And now he bought another apartment in front of the building because he wants to have a view of Danube. So he's changing apartments. He doesn't know what to do with the other one. So he's ready to sell it. So he was able to buy from him for a very, very reasonable sum. So he has mamash is basically his house, his mamash next door, but his house nissim af nissim. And I was there in his house. He's got Baruch Hashem, a very beautiful house because this guy had plenty of money to waste, and so he's got this stunning apartment downtown next to his Beis Chabad. And the day before, I came there on a Monday. The day before, they had a fashion show in the Beis Chabad, a fashion show, and to show how you can wear kosher, wear tznius clothes. And they had gotten contact with all the various high-class stores who would show their styles. And I saw the leftover, like the red carpet or the catwalk, whatever. And it has a few hundred people every Shabbos. It's like, and this is what's going on. Again, Baruch Hashem, and you hear tremendous haslachas, struggles at the same time. But Baruch Hashem, this is like what you're seeing, what is going on. Shlichim the haslachas there. And is that the Chabad Shaliach? So, Chaim.
Taiwan, there's a unique in Taiwan, Jewish center, they talk about Jewish center of Taiwan. This guy Schwartz put in the Shliach over there is an Israeli guy who was there in Taiwan. He has over 5-6 years. This guy was building this big Jewish center, huge. And he was going to give it to the conservative rabbi, but he gave it to the Chabad guy. Chabad guy is taking care of the Yiddish therapy. And they made this mikveh. And the mikveh, they wrote this on the wall. This is not. My wife was asking. I mean, it's not Hashem's name. It's Rabbi Kiva's.
The
Gemara.
Yeah.
Is that whatever? In 3 languages.
4 languages.
Oh,
because you don't read the Japanese.
The Chinese. So this is whatever. So it doesn't kill them.
I have a policy. I only answer people's own questions. I don't answer you what he should do.
Oh, well, I can imagine you can be. I mean,
If he'll ask me, then I'll have to
no,
think
it's
about
for
it.
women.
If she will ask me, I'll have just. We had recently Shalom Greenberg. Shalom Greenberg from not Shalom, and not a lot. No, that's Yoski. Brother Shalom is in Shanghai, and he told how he for a country several years, and then they didn't have mikveh. And it came a mice to go to mikveh that to fly to Hong Kong. But then came a mice with stars. Stars. You can't travel. You can't even travel from city to city. Mikveh. So they decided they have to buy a place and build a shul and build a mikveh. Not so easy. Apparently, Shanghai is not cheaper than Manhattan. I'm sure the prices. So good. So he started raising money. But then you need to get a mortgage. Turns out you can't get a mortgage in China unless you're a Chinese citizen. So even if he'd raise a down payment, no chance of getting a mortgage. So he's really stuck. And you can't go further. You can't buy anything because you can't get a mortgage. And he felt that his shlichus in Shanghai is like, it's not going anywhere. He has to pack up. So he came to New York for fundraising. He came about a couple of weeks before the Kinsey Shluchim. And meanwhile, he went to the Rebbe to see him. And he says, he spent in all these years developing, and now it looks like the end of the road. And no mailer for him, but there's a community there, and there'll be nothing to provide for them. Rebbetzin. Kopodim Motzei Shabbos, he calls home. So he calls home, and he speaks to his wife. And how was Shabbos? What's the time difference? She said, "Oh, by the way, we got a donation of $1 million." Yeah.
By the way.
You being serious? So she says, "Call up Mr. Ben Shabbat." And the Gabe, just call up Mr. Ben Shabbat. He'll tell you more details. So he calls Ben Shabbat. I've been waiting already for hours. I'm waiting since Shabbat is finished. I've been waiting for you to call. He didn't realize the time difference between New York and so he says, "What's the story?" So Ben Shabbat tells him that on Friday he had a meeting, a business meeting. There's a millionaire who lives in Hong Kong. His name is Buchbut. And they had this meeting. And Ben Shabbat says, I told him I have to finish early. I have to be in the Chabad house. I have to be there in time before Shabbat because the rabbi is away. So I have to be the one to welcome the guests. Why is the rabbi away? So he says, he told the whole story, how struggling and to build a building, and they can't cut their money, and he's going to raise funds. And then Ben Shabbat says, I told Mr. Buchmut, if you consider helping us. Well, I'll think about it. I'll speak to my partners. So then, not long after that, Buchmut said, I got $1 million, $2 million, but he made this commitment, I think it was $2 million, which was, and Shabbat says, it's very nice, but you actually said that's what you need, so fine. So then Greenberg asks Ben Shabbat, what time was this? Don't worry, it was before Shabbat. Don't worry. So he says, no, I wanted to know what time it was. So it was the same time he had just gone to the oil, by the oil. At the same time, Buchbut had decided to give this $2 million to be able to buy this building, which Baruch Hashem apparently went ahead, etc. But Zok Greenberg, the Rebbe is to have geholfen and say, this Buchbut he never met in his life. It wasn't noch better. He wasn't even in the country. In case you might have I'm a smart guy, I'm a diplomat, I'm a smooth talker. The Rebbe should gemacht, a guy you don't even know, you weren't even there, and the Rebbe geführt to what's the inside. So,
This is a double line.
okay.
What year was this? The story?
The story of you.
He's next to Shimmy.
Shimmy is in Beijing.
Chaya.
And Chaya on the coast.
Because he was here last year also. For the COVID.
Right. Meanwhile, Solomon Greenberg has not come back yet.
Oh, he's late?
Yeah, but I met him just yesterday. He said that he hopes to go within the next couple of weeks. He's been stuck here for about 6 months. Time.
You see,
Right. Pardon?
Missing top of the end.
Perfect time. I met him. I was in Haditz. I couldn't come here because the waters were closed. So I went for the Shabbos Slichas. I went to Haditz. So he was there with the whole group of his parents. And yeah, I brought the same. What's that?
No, one more
Story. So, all right, I'll tell you a story. Talking about Messias Nefesh. This is a story I heard from my uncle Yisrael. So, yesterday I was Farbrengen with in Borough Park, whatever they wanted to hear stories of Chassidim. There's a fellow by the name of Shimon Stillman, whom I remember from Australia. He was a
Sorry, from Australia?
he lived in Australia.
I'm from there, so that's
What's your name?
Arigato.
From Melbourne?
Yeah.
Okay. Caulfield?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you go Jew?
He killed us also. Okay. Right.
He was in Sydney.
Who was in Sydney? Shimon, yeah, but then he moved. Whilst I was there, he moved to Melbourne. Yeah, and someone persuaded him that he should be the Balkera. So he was Balkera also, like whatever. It was an experience. So this is Shimon Stillerman. He was quite a simple type of person. One time, the KGB came into our apartment in Russia, and everyone hid under the beds and out the windows, and he's just standing there, and it's as if we didn't see him. His wife still lives on Alexandra, across the street from YG, I believe. So he one day been seeing Shemter walking the street, and he sees that Shimon Silliman is walking kind of arm in arm with a policeman. So it looks like quite an amiable conversation. Afterwards, he says, "Listen, I'm arrested in any case. Why make it tough?" But then it was like a gate show. Was that machen schweren bleiben? Ich schmooze with the policeman. The kids, Shimon Stillerman. So I've been seeing Mr. Shemtiv sees Shimon Stillerman in the good company of a communist policeman, and he realizes a bit of trouble here. So he goes over to the policeman, and he gives him a very warm Shalom Aleichem, and he starts hugging him and kissing him. And Shimon Stillerman is standing there dumbfounded, looking at what's going on here. So he gives him with his foot, he gives him a kick. And then Shimon realizes he has to, clear the area. And then after 5 minutes of hugging and kissing the fellow, so then they released his bear hug, and so the guy says, the policeman says, "And who are you?" So he says, "What do you mean? We were best friends in Kharkiv. We used to." I was never in that. Perhaps he had a twin. All right. Listen, listen. This guy why was Shimon arrested? Because he was the agent of the army. He had deserted the army. So the person who's deserted the army is a very serious offense. So I had in my hand, I had a fegela, a deserter, and you caused me to let him free. So now you're coming with me. So Benzin was arrested to come for the crime of letting this guy free. So on the way to the police station, so Benzin tells him, "Listen, I want to explain something to you. We're going to get to the headquarters, to the office. So listen, you will be accused. You had an army deserter. You had a criminal in your hands. You let him free. I will be charged for kissing someone who I don't know." So here's 20 rubles and have a nice day. And
No. When I hear a Meister, I'll not say I heard it. Until I hear it there more. Because if I had all things, either I can get something more than I knew from before, or I can give somebody more. That's why I like to hear the whole Meister, which is good. There's a couple of points here. Let me just make a couple of points. My preparation, how did my father go like this free? Why didn't he have to go to the army? Why was my father arrested? He took intentionally his thumb from his foot and broke it off. Your own thumb, make an double disconnect.
I remember he used to wear special shoes.
Because his foot was always like this. Once you're in this condition, they have to go to the army. If you think what it means to take off, to break your own thumb, break it off, probably is soon more than it. But he did it. when he had grabbed the police officer, said, "Who are you?" Said, "Not remember to get in Moscow." So what are you talking about? I was never in Moscow. I see it too. Takes a look, his prisoner still, man. Ran away. Say, you little shit, little Jew, you snuck my prisoner out from me. Now you coming instead of me. I say, I got no problem, I'll go. But you're gonna look like a stupid idiot. You fall, you let a little Jew fool you. So what are you gonna get? They'll laugh at you. Make a fool of yourself. You have to leave. I have to leave. If you want your ruble, you go back. You didn't find them. No crime. They'll say it's nefesh, mamish. It's talking with the Rebbe and the Zok that you have to use your nefesh to have the gashmis of the beruchnis. As if you bench Hashem, there it says Beis Tzadik. That's KGB shouldn't pick it up. That's based on nefesh self and even the gashmis of the beruchnis. Now you know who you say there was. Just to see what it is. And we try in our little thing to copy, and they try to copy this one. My parents injected in me that. I have no way to get out of it. It's an injection. This is my highest. Now I agree. And then and if I get it again, I'll do it again also. With yeah. You have a biggest responsibility. And you call it so level. And you call it so level. And Anivas, a good azar, you can afford to have it. Sometimes you have to put up your COVID that you don't need COVID. Yeah. I don't say COVID, you didn't expect it COVID here. And you're not going to expect. The more you're going to stay here, the less COVID you're going to get. And this is what you need. This is what
before, that a fire doesn't produce constructive ash is not worth anything. Which means that you have an inspiration, and then if it creates a fire, creates ash, and if ash can be used for something constructive, then that's a malach. But just inspiration without concrete results, that has no intrinsic value. Yeah? So now with Farbrengen, we'll be sitting here for 2 hours, and what is going to be a concrete result? So there's 2 points which I want to share and encourage. One is that in the last year, there has been an amazing initiative of Project Likutei Sichos. Project Likutei Sichos. And this is, I'm amazed at the amount of people, the spectrum of people in Galite who I was surprised they have Sefer and they take the Sichos and they listen. It's an amazing, I don't know whether you've seen this. There's the website, and you got about 10, 15 speakers, English. This is Bariches, this is Bekitzer, this is in French, and this is in Russian, and this is in Hungarian, and you have a choice of listening to the Sikha. And you don't have to work very hard. You know, I have a problem because my wife is hooked on it. And whenever I want to go into the kitchen, I have to master the Sikha. Because Hert is the Sichos, and then Baruch Hashem, this is an amazing, amazing thing. Especially guys who are commuting, driving, etc. If you have now over the phone, you can log in and you can hear Pashat Agishma. As I say, I'm amazed. I really speak to you. It's almost I'm retired. Yeah, I follow the Sikh every week, and people have gone through 200 Sikhs over the last whatever it's a year or 2 years now. It's 2 years now. Yeah, that's right. There's been 2 cycles. So there's been over 200 Sikhs people have listened to and lived with, which is an amazing thing. So that's, if you were talking about Rabbi Koppin, you want to talk about something concrete. I don't know who you are. I know who your Zayda was. But, okay. So, but. So I don't know what your schedule is, but if you have an opportunity, you have flexible, put aside there's 10 minutes or an hour during the week to join in this project of Likutei Sichos. So that is, it's a way of connecting. It's a concrete connection. Instead of just talking about, fine stories and inspiration, something concrete. I'm going to listen to this, and it's something which you can do every week. The other thing which I want to share with you is, which I personally find very fulfilling, is that, as I mentioned before, every week the Bad Lahak put out a Sikha. I was brought up, now this is for Rabbi Shushan, I was brought up that between Mincha and Ma'ariv, nothing for a Sikha. Let them sit around, we learn the Sikha. So in the earlier years, we would get the Sikha a week or 2 later, because the Rebbe gave it out on Pashas Noach, but arrived in Lech Lecha, so Lech Lecha Bayera, you're learning Noach. But then eventually, when I moved back to London, I was missing out, because when I lived here, I wouldn't go home Friday night before learning the Sikha. How can you go home without having a couple of Shabbos without learning the Sikha, which came out that Shabbos? When I moved to London, I was very upset, because I had to have the last week's Sikha. And eventually, the whole of my dream was fulfilled, and something was created to call the fax machine. And so we were able to get the Sikha for Teldas, and the Sikha for Vayetzek. So the fax machine we became. You ever heard of the fax machine?
Heard of it.
Yeah.
What show it looks like?
Yeah. They go to an antique shop. The whole point was, this was a chiddush. We were able to get the Sikha in time. And then I must tell you, after Gimel Tammuz, I mean, from Dayan and Author, it was again. I tell you, I'm nice. I once came here, this is years before, past the noons, late mems, and I came here on a Thursday night. A live flight in London, I arrived here Thursday evening, I went to 770, And I was hanging around some until about 12 o'clock at night. Then, went home. But if you were on European hours, I can't sleep past 5 a.m. So 5 a.m. I get up, I walk up Kingston Avenue, and I meet Mushkah tells me, "Oh, boy, did you see the new mimer?" So you see the new mimer? So I say, "What new mimer?" So he says, "They Rebbe gave out a mimer during the night." So I said, "I don't understand." I was at 12 o'clock, I was still so empty, and I didn't hear anything about it. So he says, "Yeah, the Rebbe has next to his table, next to his room, he has a table. And the Rebbe table. And the Rebbe would, during the night, he would open the door. There would be something ready for the Rebbe to check through. He'd take it into his room, sit and work on it for however long he worked on it. Then open the door, put it there. So let's say it was put there at 2 a.m. At 4 a.m., the Rebbe opened the door, put it there. And then by 5 a.m., it's printed. I was totally shocked. In the nuns. I was in total shock. It's unheard of. It's unheard of that you have God will be Yisrael, a Mane, whatever. But you sit through the night, you give him material, you check it, it's like phenomenal. Now that was my Hergish. And then it's going to then started coming out the Rishimus. For me, the Rishimus was Mamash Kamayim Karaman Nefesh. Mitamol was new things, new Giluyim, whatever, and they were Rishimus are amazing stuff. Amazing. And I was looking up, amazing experience. I know other guys, Nudnikis was the data code. What was it for? The Rebbe wrote it for it should stay in an archive. The Rebbe who wrote it that Chassidim should have it. Upon him, it was really an amazing uplift. But then the Lahak started giving us sikhs every week. And by us, we have a seder. Every week, we learned every Shabbos. Every Kabbalah Shabbos. We get by 9 Shabbos. That's the Hachana for Shabbos. Sit down, 25 minutes, half an hour. We learn the Siddur. So, oh, yeah. Rebbetzin is Mushkah von Shver. Mulle, the Schwager von Shver. So, he said the bon frère. The beau-frère and the bon frère. I'll call upon him. I want to just tell you a story. I have a shwager who's a shliach Rav in Holland. So he's a shliach in Holland, and he called me up. He has a question. Sometimes he asks me. He's older than me. He's 15 years older, but it's chadur. There's a Yiddish fellow, who is a member of Parliament, a member of what do you call it here, Congress. Whatever happens from the fences, and he is a member of the majority. Very good, Yiddish fellow, and now there's coming up for vote a law which is against Jewish value. Against Jewish value, LGBT, whatever it may be, something like that. So now you have a problem. Against Jewish value. Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like they have a clear majority. But he has a problem. Should he vote against or vote for? If he votes for, he's against Torah. If he votes against, he can say goodbye to his career as a politician. Go get your party line, and for archaic biblical whatever. Good. He asked my shwager, what should he do? Comprendre la question. Il a un problème qu'il est un membre du gouvernement et il y a maintenant un vote et c'est quelque chose contre la Torah. s'il va dire oui, alors c'est contre la Torah. S'il va voter le contraire, il va perdre son carrière. Comprends? Alors, so now, so then he asked, so my shwager asked me, what should he do? So I told him, I sent him a sikha, which we had learned not long before. I'm not sure which year it was, around Tofshin Lam and Tofshin Chof Tes, approximately. See, one of the beautiful things we learned the sikha, and Rabbi Shmuel Lu is part of our group. And I remember I was there by the Farbrengen. There was this, and he fills in the details, which is sometimes very, very valuable. So there was a Purim Farbrengen, I think Tofshin Chof Tes. At the time, this is not written in the sikha. President Shazar had come to be, he was in New York, and he was by the Farbrengen. Tes, Lamed, whatever, around those years. Lamed. So now, at the time, was the whole parsha with Yehudi, and the Rebbe it was like an all-out war. And the Rebbe was very, very strongly outspoken about the government, about Yehudi. And here's the president of the state of Israel, He's going to sit there by the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe is going to be slamming the Israeli government for Yehudi. So Shazar kind of apparently sent in a polite request. If that request, if that could be off the agenda. He's going to be there. If that could be off the agenda. Alors, so now, by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe says the following. Pare has 3 ministers. And Yisrael. Bilo, who said to punish over Yitzchak. He said to punish the Bnei Israel. So he was killed. Iyoi Sheshosak. He suffered. And Yisrael, who said, huh? So then what happened? So he was rewarded, whatever the details are. So now the Rebbe asks, like there's an English word called parody. You take a whole. This is a Purim. The Rebbe said like a Purim tale. Bilam was employed as a minister for Mitzrayim. So he advises for the benefit of Mitzrayim. So now we have the Jewish problem. So he has to advise for the benefit of Mitzrayim. So what do you have a problem? The fact that he says to get rid of them when he is paid for it, is doing, he's loyal to his job to act on for the benefit of Mitzrayim. So why is Bilam punished? In the Teretz, he says that because Bilam was Yedei Das Elyon, and he knows that actually it's for the interest of Mitzrayim. The welfare of Yidden is crucial for Mitzrayim. So when he tells Mitzrayim to get rid of the Yidden, he's actually it's a travesty against Mitzrayim. He's being disloyal to Mitzrayim. He gets punished. Okay, next. Now we go to Iyov. We know the sympathies. We know the sympathies of Pare. Bilam has already cast his vote. We know where Pare stands. So Iyov, I mean, it's if he's going to go even in support, it's not going to really work. So why do you have a problem that he was quiet? Why is he punished for being quiet? And the answer is, you are in a position of influence and you have a chance to say the right thing. You have to say the right thing, even though it might be futile. That's why Iyov is punished. Then comes Yisrael. Listen, Bilam has said he's condemned. Iyov has abstained. Waste the time. He could have stayed there and said, you know what, let's get money for Beis. Let's get it like a girls' school. Why? No, he's at gesagt sein Stickel, and he had to run away because he couldn't stay. Typisch. These are words. What are you doing? It's a waste. You have an opportunity of having some kind of I still the porta. And no. You're there. You have to say the right thing, even though it means you have to run away. That was the Rebbe's Purim time. So he didn't say a word about Yehudi. Shazar didn't get offended, but he said exactly what he wanted to say without saying anything. But anyway, I sent this to my brother-in-law to show this politician, this member of parliament, to see. It was very, very clear that you're in a position of influence, even though it may jeopardize your career. But then, as a Yid, you have to take. So, why am I telling you this story? Besides it being a fascinating and entertaining, Farbrengens, I told Rabbi Shushan, Farbrengens have to be entertaining. That's a rule. Farbrengens have to be entertaining. But why I'm saying this story is that I think there's a certain value in a commitment to learn the sichos without you deciding which sichos to learn. In other words, you can take a look at the sichos, read the list of contents. Oh, I like that one. But then kind of you decided what the Rebbe is going to say to you. Yeah. And when you have a commitment, the Rebbe, there's going to be a sicha published week by week, and you're going to learn that sicha. So you kind of allow the Rebbe to speak to you. So I want to encourage. I said before about the project of sichos. This area of the sichos which come out Kesidron to make a point. And if it's between Mincha and Ma'ariv, if your wife doesn't mind that you're not going to come home till you learn the sicha, but that's to say that. And there's so many things which you by just the Rebbe used to say Yavne b'chachamel. Yavne b'chachamel means set the framework in motion, and then the information will trickle. There's Yavne b'chachamel. So you have a kviyas. You have a kviyas, you're going to learn the sicha. And that will be the conduit, that will be the vehicle through which the inspiration will come, the guidance. So these are two things which I want to particularly encourage. Project of Sichos, each one can do in their own time. The other one also in your own time, but it's going to have frische Sache. You have these, Sidim Oldemors used to say about the fish. When it starts raining, the fish come to the surface to drink the rain. You got plenty of water. Frische Sache. You gravitate, you want to enjoy that frische Sache, a fresh thing. And so something comes out fresh. So, all right, thank you. See whether she must be corrected. Yeah. Where are they? Okay. It's okay. What was that?